This is Josh Friedman in Stockholm, Sweden on June 12th, 2025. I am outside the Grand Hotel here in the center of Stockholm, where inside right now there are more than 100 of the more prominent members of politics, business, media, academia across the West participating in the Bilderberg meeting. It also just so happens that the Prime Minister of Sweden, Ulf Kristersson, is inside there right now as well, possibly giving a welcome talk or an introductory speech at the dinner that might be taking place there right now for this 2025 Bilderberg meeting, of which Kristersson is not on the participants list. There are very notable participants nonetheless. The current head of NATO, Mark Rutte, is in attendance. I have seen him. The former head of NATO, whom Rutte replaced, Jens Stoltenberg, is also supposed to be in attendance. There's some storylines related to that and NATO certainly at this event. Some of the more prominent Bilderberg regulars, particularly from the tech space, steering committee members Eric Schmidt, Peter Thiel, Alex Karp, Thiel and Karp both with Palantir, co-founders of Palantir, Karp being the Karp being the CEO of Palantir. They're in attendance. They've all been spotted. Thiel, Schmidt, and Karp have all been walking around here outside the Grand earlier today. There's been a lot of talk and buzz about Palantir because of its ties with the Trump administration and a database that it will be building. That said, Sweden is a very interesting location, and the Grand Hotel in particular. The Grand Hotel is owned by the very influential Wallenberg family, which essentially holds a seat on the Bilderberg steering committee, the Swedish seat, which is currently occupied by Jacob Wallenberg, who entered several hours ago into his family's hotel. Marcus Wallenberg is also in attendance at this meeting. The Wallenbergs are one of the richest and most influential families in all of Europe, for that matter, not just Sweden, and they're what you might say a Bilderberg dynasty. Another Bilderberg dynasty, one might describe it as, that's represented today is from Greece. Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis is in attendance. We ran into him several hours ago after he stepped outside the Grand Hotel and went for a walk. Mitsotakis is the only Prime Minister on the participants list, albeit Ulf Kristersson is inside the Grand Hotel right now. Former Swedish Prime Minister Magdalena Andersson is also in attendance. There's a lot of Nordic representation, and it is quite fitting, one might say, that the meeting is taking place here in Stockholm this year, since not too long ago, first Finland and then Sweden joined NATO. As that process was taking place, there were some interesting Bilderberg ties that popped up. Sanna Marin, the former Finnish Prime Minister, who is back again this year, met briefly with Jens Stoltenberg, then the head of NATO, at the 2022 Bilderberg meeting in Washington, D.C. At the time, Finland was still trying to join NATO, was in the process of joining NATO. Also spotted outside the meeting, although again he's not a participant, at least not a former participant, is Oscar Stenström. Stenström, who now actually works for Jacob Wallenberg, was the head negotiator for Sweden's NATO membership. That process is now complete. His job within politics is done. He used to be the essentially chief of staff for Magdalena Andersson also. Stenström has been spotted walking out and about here in Stockholm prior to the meeting. He's back, although not as a formal participant. So a lot of ties, interesting ties to Scandinavia and the Nordics and NATO. And one might say that's extra fitting because of just how much of a focus this meeting will have on all things defense, transatlantic alliances, and everything having to do with war and what's happening in the military sphere. So reading off the topics, this is from the Bilderberg website. These are the official topics for discussion at this year's meeting. They start with transatlantic relationship, which is very understandable given that there are many concerns among Bilderberg types and strong believers in transatlantic unity, that the Trump administration, the US, could fracture that. So that will be a key focal point of the discussion this year. Following transatlantic relationship is Ukraine, then US economy, Europe, Middle East, authoritarian access, defense, innovation and resilience, AI deterrence and national security, proliferation, geopolitics of energy and critical minerals, another Ukraine tie, and then depopulation and migration is the last topic. A lot of people on the outside have been commenting and speculating about the depopulation word that popped up on the final topic. That's created a bit of a buzz outside the Grand Hotel, but clearly a huge focus of this meeting is all things defense, war, the military alliance that is NATO, and some of the key players that I've already mentioned factor heavily not just in those discussions, but what's happening globally, whether it being Eric Schmidt and him pressing for the US to up its drone game, and Schmidt now has a drone startup and aims to provide drones to Ukraine, or whether it be Thiel and Karp and their company Palantir, and Palantir's real major involvement in assisting Ukraine, assisting Israel, and all things national security. A lot of surveillance concerns on the outside related to Palantir, but clearly notable topics this year, clearly notable participants, very geopolitically heavy meeting that, albeit it's getting some coverage, at least among Swedish media, probably is not getting the international coverage that it deserves, but nonetheless, I'm here as well as other independent media, and I strive to provide you some interesting interviews and interactions with participants over the coming days, and I will be reporting to you hopefully for the duration of Bilderberg 2025 right here in Stockholm, Sweden. Stay tuned, and thank you very much.